Hello and Assalamualaikum. Thank you for tuning into our presentation. In this session, we'll be presenting our research proposal titled Determinants of Digital Payment Adoption Among Generation Z in Malaysia. Before we go any further, let me introduce our team members. First, we have Iman Sofi binti Salazlin. Second, we have Nurul Nuwairah binti Aziz. Third, we have Nur Adina Husna binti Muhammad Fuad. And the last one, we have Muhammad Daniel Haziq bin Muhammad Nazir. I'll be covering the background of the study and the problem statement. Let's start with some context. The digital payment landscape has seen a significant shift over the past decade, and one of the most important changes has been the growing reliance on cashless and contactless payment methods. The COVID-19 pandemic accelerated this trend globally, but especially in Southeast Asia, where fintech innovation is booming. In Malaysia, the growth of digital wallets, QR-based transactions, and mobile banking apps has been rapid, supported by government initiatives, private fintech investment, and the tech savviness of the younger population. Among all age groups, Generation Z, those who born between the mid-90s and early 2000s, has emerged as one of the most influential digital consumer segments. This group grew up surrounded by technology. For them, digital solutions are not innovations, they are expectations. They value speed, convenience, and simplicity in financial transactions. Naturally, this generation has become a major focus for fintech companies, banks, and digital wallet providers aiming to increase adoption and user retention. Despite this, adoption is not uniform or guaranteed. Many Gen Z individuals adopt digital payments quickly, but others remain hesitant or inconsistent in their usage. This raises an important question, and that is what it means whether a Gen Z individual decides to adopt or reject digital payment platforms. In previous research has suggested several possible determinants, which are perceived convenience, perceived security, perceived cost, and social influence. But this segment will be covered by the next presenter. Now I'll continue to the problem statement. Even though Malaysia is rapidly moving toward a cashless society and many efforts have been made to promote digital payment systems, there are still barriers to full adoption, especially among younger users. On the surface, digital payment systems offer many advantages, which are convenience, speed, promotions, and even discount. However, adoption rates vary significantly even within the Gen Z population. This inconsistency points to a gap in understanding. While fintech solutions continue to expand, the perceptions and behaviors of Gen Z users are not fully understood. For example, someone may find the system convenient but still avoid using it because they don't trust the security features or because their friends do not use it. Others may like the concept but are discouraged by transaction fees or find the interface confusing. Furthermore, previous research tends to examine these variables in isolation rather than looking at how they interact with each other. Additionally, the majority of past studies were conducted either before the pandemic or focused on older generation. There is limited recent literature that explores the collective effect of these four determinants: convenience, security, cost, and social influence on Gen Z in a Malaysian context. Ultimately, this study hopes to provide a clearer picture of what motivates or discourages adoption among this influential demographic. This is important not just for fintech companies but also for banks, retailers, and policymakers who are working toward making Malaysia a fully cashless, digitally inclusive society.
Thank you, Iman. Let's now look at the research objectives, questions, and our method of analysis. The focus of our study is the adoption of digital payments among Gen Z, which is the dependent variable. We aim to find out what drives or hinders this behavior among Generation Z in Malaysia. To do this, we have identified four main independent variables. The first one is perceived convenience, the second one is perceived security, the third one is perceived cost, and lastly, social influence. Our research objectives include to measure the extent of digital payment adoption among Generation Z and to determine the influence of each independent variable on digital payment adoption. These lead us to 5 research questions. The questions, which all related to the dependent variable and independent variables of the study. For instance, for perceived security, to what extent does perceived security influence digital payment adoption among Generation Z? So, to answer this, we will use multiple regression analysis. This method helps us identify which variables significantly impact our dependent variable and to what degree. It allows us to build a model that explains adoption behavior in a meaningful and data-driven way.
Thanks, Adina. In this section, I'll summarize key literature from prominent scholars that supports our framework. First, our dependent variable is digital payment adoption, which is defined as the actual use and intention to use digital platforms like e-wallet or mobile banking to perform financial transactions. According to Widayani et al. And PwC in 2022, digital payment adoption is especially high among digitally native groups, but not all users adopt it consistently. Our study focused on 4 independent variables that have been widely examined in previous literature: perceived convenience, perceived security, perceived cost, and social influence. Let's start with perceived convenience. Gao and Weche emphasize that convenience in terms of speed, accessibility, and ease of use is one of the most important factors influencing adoption. This is supported by Davis Technology Acceptance Model, which proposed that when users find a system easy to use, they are more likely to adopt it. For Generation Z, who expect fast and seamless digital experiences, convenience is a critical driver. Next, perceived security. According to Siakis and Stefanite, security is a major concern when it comes to digital payment system. Users need to feel confident that their financial and personal data are protected. Zhao also notes that trust in platform security features such as encryption, password protection, and biometric authentication can positively influence adoption. For Gen Z, strong security features enhance trust and increase willingness to use digital payments. Moving on to perceived costs, Mallet and Tunainen found that financial costs such as transaction fees, data charges, or hidden service fees can discourage adoption. However, when digital payment providers offer affordable services or incentives like cashback, adoption becomes more likely. As a generation that is often budget conscious, Gen Z tends to weigh costs carefully before adopting new tools. Lastly, social influence. As explained in the Unified Theory of Acceptance and Use of Technology by Venkatesh, social influence refers to the impact of peers, family, or public figures on an individual's behavior. Alalwan et al. Further emphasized that among younger users, recommendation from peers or popular influencers can significantly influence technology adoption. For Gen Z, if digital payment use is normalized within their social circle, they are more likely to adopt it themselves. So, based on these insights, we developed the conceptual framework for our study. It proposed that the 4 independent variables each have direct effect on the dependent variable, which is digital payment adoption. From this framework, we formulated the following hypotheses, which are all 4 variables is significantly related to digital payment adoption. This hypothesis will be tested through multiple regression analysis, which will allow us to examine both the individual and combined influence of each variable. That concludes the summary of our literature review. I will now hand it over to Daniel, who will explain our research methodology in detail.
Thank you, Waira. I will now present our research methodology. Our study adopts a quantitative research approach. The primary goal is to test the relationship between 4 independent variables. First, perceived convenience. Second, perceived security. Third, perceived cost. And social influence. And 1 dependent variable, which is the adoption of digital payment systems among Generation Z in Malaysia. We use a descriptive cross-sectional design to collect data at a single point in time. This is ideal for examining user attitudes and behavior in relation to digital payment platforms during the current post-pandemic landscape. For our sampling technique, we chose convenience sampling. While not the most generalizable, this method allows us to easily access respondents, which is mostly university students and working young adults, through online platforms. Our sample size consists of 60 respondents which is appropriate for exploratory research within academic constraints. To gather our data, we create an online questionnaire using Google Forms. The form was shared through WhatsApp, Telegram, and other social media channels to reach our target demographic. Malaysia Generation Z individual aged between 18 and 27 who are familiar with digital payment platforms. The questionnaire consists of 6 sections. First section, Section A captures demographics information such as age, gender, and level of education. Section B to E correspondent to the 4 independent variables. First, perceived convenience. Second, perceived security. Third, perceived cost. And last but not least, social influence. And last section will be Section F, focus on the dependent variable, the extent of digital payment adoption. All sections use a 5-point Likert scale ranging from strongly disagree to strongly agree. This scale allows us to quantify user perception and analyze the strength of association between variables. Once data collection is complete, we will conduct analysis using SPSS software. First, we will apply descriptive statistics to summarize respondent characteristics and measures central tendencies like means and standard deviation for each variable. For hypothesis testing, we will use multiple regression analysis. This technique is suitable because we are examining how multiple independent variables simultaneously influence a single dependent variable in digital payment adoption. Through regression, we aim to first, determine which factors are statistically significant. Second, understand how strongly each variable contributes to digital payment adoption. Last but not least, identify whether some variables like convenience or social influence have greater predictive power than others. That's all from me. Thank you for your time.
In conclusion, this research explores 4 key determinants which are perceived convenience, perceived security, perceived cost, and social influence and their impact on digital payment adoption among Generation Z in Malaysia. By examining these factors, the study aims to provide meaningful insights for app developers, financial institutions, and policymakers to better understand Gen Z's preferences and behaviors. These insights can contribute to the development of digital payment platforms that are not only secure and convenient, but also socially relevant and widely accepted. Although this study is limited in scope and scale, it serves as a valuable foundation for future research and practical improvements in digital financial services. Thank you. That will be all for our group.